Hi guys, welcome back. We've got something of an exclusive I guess today. Now if you've watched the channel previously you're going to be quite familiar with the red and black rifle at the back there. That's my Air Arms Xti50. That's a purebred field target rifle. Now we've used this at really long ranges. We've done a fair bit of benchrest stuff with it. We've done an awful lot of pellet testing. Everything we've asked of it, it's performed brilliantly. Well, this is the new model. This is the aluminium chassis. So the actions themselves are the same, but it's the chassis that's different. Now this chassis here has been in development for probably just over a year, I suppose it is now. It's got some pieces that I've cobbled together on there. The factory version, when it comes out early in the year, won't have the matte black truck bed linered woodwork on there. I put that on there, just scraps. Everyone always asks me, why does my stuff end up getting truck bed linered and matte blacked? Well, the truth of it is that building fancy woodwork for myself doesn't pay the bills, and I'm far too impatient with my own stuff to spend the time sanding, oiling, making everything pretty. I'm much more just get it functional, get it out there, go and use it. What we're going to do today is whip the scope off of the one at the back there. That's the new Falcon Endura S40. We're going to pop it onto here. We're going to see how different the two of these feel. Now, of course, we've got a huge amount of adjustability in here. We can offset all of the rear end. We've got multiple articulation in the grip itself. We've got the ball jointed hardware at the back, long accessory rail. So there's an awful lot of adjustability in this. We're going to have a little look at all of that. Then we're going to see how it shoots and see how it compares to the red and black one there, and see which of these two I'm going to take to my indoor bench rest competitions over the winter, and see which of these is going to end up as the main gun on the channel for 2025. So let's get into it. Right, where do we even start? There's a huge amount of adjustability in here, more than you're going to find really in any other alley chassis on the market. It's built like an absolute tank. Very interesting, the articulation in the back here, so you can actually cast this or offset it depending on what side of the shooting scene you come from. If you may be more from shotguns, you might want to call it cast. Most of your target disciplines of rifles will call it offset, but the whole back end of this is articulating. Let me just remove that cheek piece. I've trimmed that down, starting to actually put it through a bit of a weight loss program, but the actual clamp portions in here are the same as the wooden stock has. Now in here we can slacken this off. Now there's an O-ring inside of here, so this won't suddenly just go super slack, but if you wanted to offset it, you can cast it. If you need to wrap it up around your body, you can do so. You've got a ton of adjustability there. For the shooting that I'm doing, I'm just going to keep it all centered, because of course most of the shooting now is off of the deck, off of the bags. It's probably both, and sort of a bit of bench rest as well, so we won't need to worry about that for the moment. But there's also going to be some additional hardware for the cheek piece, so if you wanted to offset the back end quite a lot, there's some additional bracketry for the cheek to bring your cheek back along the centre line if you need it there. So it comes as a sort of comprehensive kit, if you like. For most of us, for a lot of disciplines, you're going to want to keep it centred. However, if you're shooting field target, you want a great big butt hook, you're shooting in a shooting jacket, there's a huge amount of adjustability there. Also, quite interestingly, this can just be dismantled. So if you're travelling internationally, for instance, a lot of the field target crew do, a lot of the extreme bench rest boys, they're shooting internationally. So you're flying with guns, travelling with guns. Just unbolt it, take it apart. You can put the whole thing in a much smaller, more stout case, which is going to be quite interesting. But for me, I'm going to keep that centred for the moment. There's some really interesting little touches with this. These little cutouts in the back here, they're actually for balance weights. So it comes with these beautifully machined little stainless balance weights. They can be obviously used with or without. There's a little grub screw in the top there that locates in the top there. 75 grams each, so you've got 150 grams of additional ballast there if you want it. Very, very cool. So we've also got multi-adjustable grip on here as well, so you can twist the grip, you can spin it about its axis. Of course, coupled with the back and forth, you can get that exactly how you want. Now the final factory grips won't look like this. They're going to be a groove-less one. Now that's how I got the rifle. About a year or so ago, I suppose it was, I was commissioned by the factory to build all the grips for the working prototypes, of which this was one of the final ones. So me being me, part of the deal for making those, we've got the rifle. What did you expect? Like I say, so I've built the woodwork for the factory versions. This, of course, it won't come from factory, I don't think, with a wooden fore-end piece like that. I guess it's going to be sold with the hamster mech, but if there's enough interest, either they will or I will, there will be the options to pare it back for those of you that want to potentially do bench rest and long range stuff with it. Again, multi-adjustable cheek piece on the ball joint. That's the same as the wood stocked versions. In fact, I've actually just pinched out of my spares box. That's a Steyr cheek piece that I make. I can go back in there. On the final versions, there will actually be a small section of accessory rail underneath of the cheek piece, so you can move the cheek back or forwards, again depending on your length of pull. And also, interestingly, where I've been shooting at the club now, especially working in ear defenders, if I'm shooting with ear defenders on, I've had to start sliding my cheek piece forward, because I have noticed that bottom edge of my ear defenders clips the cheek piece and it's really off-putting. So sliding that cheek forward works really, really well, keeps it out of the way for some of the more obscure disciplines. The weight of this is actually almost identical to that of the laminate stock, which is quite impressive. It's got a huge amount of metal machined out the fore end of this. It's actually, this whole piece at the front here is one great big billet to start with. There's an awful lot of machining, especially to put in all these swoops in the side, put all the cutouts. I've got some photos I took at home a couple of weeks ago when I first got it, but it's a fairly impressive bit of engineering that goes into all of this, and it's pared the weight right back. So if you've shot the laminate version, this one compared, the overall weights are all but identical. This one has a slightly more rear weight bias, so it actually feels a bit lighter on aim. It's just it's almost an optical illusion, but in gun fit. There's a bit more mass in the back, the weight is lower down, so it'll feel quite stable. But of course, coupled with various balance weights and things, you can tailor that weight exactly how you need it, if you need it. Every time I get the camera out, helicopters go over, planes go over. Right, you can see I've just whipped off the fore end piece that I've made, so we've got a long accessory rail underneath of it. It's a very stout rail. In the pictures I'd seen previously, this looked like it was sort of swept up, but that's a flat face under there. You can see here, this is the cutout where the factory hamster mech would go on. I've just built a fore end piece that encloses all of that, gives me a nice little piece there for my leading hand. Now you can see how much of this metal work is relieved to get the weight right down. I'm not entirely sure how long this took on the old CNC machinery, but when we get a chance to get down to the factory, I'd sure like to know, because that's quite an impressive bit of kit, that, especially with all these flutes and things in the side here. It certainly looks pretty impressive. Now I've seen this evolving over the last year. Of course, there was a few at the various different shows. I think this time last year, in fact actually it was the beginning of this year, wasn't it? I think February, British Shooting Show, there were some early prototypes. I've been getting feedback off of everyone, and it's gone through multiple different iterations. Originally the fore end and the midsection were separate pieces, and of course it's now one piece, much more rigid, looks much cleaner. But at this point, considering how many people have had involvement in this, there's been numerous different prototypes of it. I don't think I'd have changed a thing about this, which is really quite cool. It's going to be used in my woodwork going forward, although I'm not going to be supplying them, I'm not manufacturing them. I believe they're being made out in Italy somewhere. So when we know more about that, I'll be sure to update you on it. But the most important thing with this at the moment, am I going to be able to use it going forward? Are we going to be able to use it on the channel? And is it going to be any better than the laminate one? Well, if you've seen any of my other rifles, I really do love a chassis stock. On the 9015, we've got the Wolfer modified chassis, so that's a Alitech LG300 chassis modified to fit the 9015. That's where I borrowed the grip off of. In fact, that's where you've seen the grip before. Steyr cheek piece on there, just made a little custom fore end. In fact, that's a HFT500 butt pad, sort of cobbled together from scraps. So hopefully this is going to do us pretty proud. Like I say, I've only shot this one just indoors quickly, just to make sure everything was okay. Haven't shot it outdoors in sort of fairly familiar conditions. So I'm going to quickly put the Falcon S40 on here now. Going to see how it shoots with some of the heavy pellets. Going to see, hopefully this will shoot the same. I mean, bearing in mind that this is just a newer version, you can also tell the two apart. This has got the new logo on it, the red and black one. That older Action's of course got the original logo on there, so you'll always be able to tell them apart. I am going to matte black this one down as well, because I think it just looks nicer in the chassis. We're going to put the S40 on here now, get some cards shot, see whether or not this will perform with the same pellets that the other one likes. Hopefully they both group as well as each other with all the decent pellets that we've already got set aside for the other one. That would make life a bit easier. Again, never going to find two barrels that perform exactly the same, which is always a bit of a pain. I've spent so long using the red and black one now that I know exactly what it's going to do in the wind. Hopefully this one won't take too long to get set up. Need to make all the trigger tweaks. I'm probably going to need to adjust the stabiliser to suit the heavy pellets. There's a lot of work I've got to do, but let's get that scope on quick and have a go. Right, Die 34 2021 JSB heavies. They are my second best batch in the other rifle. Now, the best ones in that typically are from 2016, and we've only got a few hundred of those left, so we're not going to use them in anything other than the other barrel, because of course we know that they're absolutely deadly out to 100, probably further to be honest, but these are a fairly decent batch in the other one. Going to have to swap out that little trigger ball. We just don't really get on with those very well. Nice little flat section under here as well. Now there's a conveniently placed little section of UIT rail under there, so if you want to put a bag rider, monopod, anything like that on there, it's going to work pretty well. So the bench rest that I'm shooting at the club is not too dissimilar to this. Have the little solid rest at the front, basically out the shoulder, just off the back of my gloved hand. So this is going to work pretty well. I do need to adjust the butt pad. Let's just send it, see what happens. Okay, a little bit higher. I need to bring the cheek piece up a tiny bit. Right, so the shot cycle feels nice and sedate. It actually sounds slightly quieter than the other one. Now the other one's coming up for, well, it's done at least 18,000 shots. It's probably coming up for nearly 20,000 shots in the last 18 months. So it's done quite a lot of work already. Now the other day I shot just a few H&Ns through it at the club, just hoping to see if they were any good, and much like the other barrel, they're okay, but get the occasional flyer. Okay, I don't think I'm going to need to adjust the stabiliser on this. That feels pretty good as it is. Now this is one of the rifles that was, I guess it was probably the HFT Worlds and the FT Euros. So a lot of you that have potentially used this at the shows and at the comps, this is one of them rifles. Although you tried it with my nice woodwork on, I didn't get that back. I had to make my own again. Right, we're somewhere there or thereabouts. I'm just going to work my way around the card. I'm just going to start at the top left, do a couple of rows and see how it pans out. Now this scope's really interesting as well. This is going to be quite important for the setup going forward. I've never quite had a scope that does exactly what this does. The reticle is fine enough for actual indoor 25-yard bench rest. Despite it being a first focal plane beast, I can still, even at 20-25 mag, it's scaled so you can just about centre the target dot in the 2mm balls, yet then we can run it straight out into the fields, give it 90 clicks and we're on at 100 yards. So very impressive bit of kit. Not sure what size them little red diamonds are, but they're not big. And that temperature is dropping really quick. It's been quite mild here the last couple of days, but today, finally get out with the camera, it's cold and it's grey. We just need to give that another little click to the left, but that's pretty good. So this definitely sounds quieter than the other one. I haven't adjusted the stripper since it arrived. Middled it. Now I was undecided of which actions to use for what shooting. Now of course I need one to use indoors over the winter. I think the new action is the one we're going to use indoors because I haven't got, well, let's be honest, if we start taking this one out over the winter, we haven't got the experience with it at the longer ranges yet, so it's going to take a bit of time to get familiar with the barrel. Using it indoors, of course, we've only got to do a bit of pellet testing and get stuck in, so I think we're going to carry on using the older action outdoors. Obviously we are now 18 months more ahead of what we've got experience with this one. But I think for the moment this is showing some pretty good promise with these heavies. Oh, that was me wobbling it. I do not like these trigger balls. I've got it spun round the other way. So I've got the threaded section on the back, just so I've got a sort of more pronounced sort of contact point with my fingertip. But I always feel like I'm not that consistent actually using a trigger ball. They're supposed to be better, obviously a more consistent, more obvious pressure point on the tip of your finger, but I don't really like them. I've got a Rowan blade that's going to go on here off of an S200 actually. That looks like it's going to fit beautifully. Well, I don't think you can argue with that. We've got a bit of a breeze running. I've got you tucked back out the wind a little bit. I need to get the old windicator stick on here actually for filming. Obviously I won't need it indoors, but if we use it filming, it's a very good tool. Now I actually broke my benchrest PB with the red one a couple of weeks ago when I first put this scope on, just in practicing at the club. I managed to get a Sunday. I had a whole hour on the indoor range where there wasn't anyone else in there. It was brilliant. I shot 100 6Xs I think on my second card, I was literally just pellet testing JSB shorts. And then I went and shot 2 lots, one after the other, 100 ATEXs in this sort of configuration, which is my new PB. So, of course, unfortunately, after all that testing we did with the 9015, building the little rest and everything for it, I'm not using that going forward. It was just a lot easier to hit the higher scores with the XTI, which is a surprise. Oh, got one that skewed miles off. I don't know what that was. Oh, it's my fingers that get cold. Oh, she's back. It's just me getting cold. Right, I think we're going to go back to the shed now. It's getting a bit chilly. Fingers are freezing, hands are hurting. I'm going to show you all the bits that I've been making for these. And I've got some pictures of the prototype parts that I built for the original one of these about a year ago. Let's see it at home. Cool. I don't know what's happened to that weather, but that's got cold really, really quick. Just a couple of groups shot, really, just on the car benchrest style. One of them pulled over to the left a little bit, that one there. No surprising, I can't really feel my fingers at that point, but certainly looking like we've got an awful lot of promise with the JSB heavies, which is going to be brilliant because it's going to be ideal if we can have a pellet that's benchrest accurate. We can then take it straight out in the fields. But I've got a couple of cards actually that I shot the other day with the older one, the black and red one, with the exact shorts. That's the batch codes and stuff on there. The 452s, although they actually measure pretty much nothing like 4.52. Just settling them into the barrel, they're really phenomenally accurate in the other one. So I'm half tempted to use the black and red one going forward indoors, but given how much time we've spent with that outdoors, I think we're probably going to use this one indoors going forward. Maybe use the chassis, just swap the actions between the chassis for the meantime. Keep this one for the indoor use until we get a good chance to spend some more time using that outdoors in the wind. But it's pretty accurate. I've also just found some footage from when I built the grips. Actually, it was this time last year almost exactly that I built the first ones, and then it was the very beginning of this year that I got them finished. Then some went out to the British Shooting Show, some went out to the IWA show on the various different chassis. So I'll put the footage up for that now. You can see this was basically January, I think, this year, just before the IWA. Right, all assembled, good to go. Just got a nice high gloss finish on there. I think that one's probably going to go out to Germany, out to the IWA show. Just works beautifully. Nice simple grip, loads of palm support on there. Decent palm swell, so much adjustability in the chassis that can be configured for multiple disciplines. It's going to practically fit any human being. Red looks cool. The lighting is terrible today. Really nice, really happy how they've turned out. Cheek pieces all matching. As I said, going to get longer rails underneath of those, but they're basically ready to go onto the demo ones. It'd be interesting when they go into manufacture. Of course, I'm not going to be manufacturing them. Don't have the capacity in terms of actual workshop space or the mental capacity to batch these out, so they're going out to a third party to be manufactured. It'd be interesting to see if we can get some footage of them actually being made. That'd be pretty cool. I guess they'll be whizzed off on a CNC of some description. All the fixings are in now. Yeah, really happy. It's been hard work getting this all done between my normal day job, if you like, with my normal work, with my customer work. Getting this all fitted in has been pretty tight. It's been we're just the end of January now, so I started these before Christmas, trying to jiggle everything around. It's quite time consuming, especially getting a nice finish on these this time of year when it's cold. I'd like to have got a few more coats of oil on them before they went out the door, but it's too risky, especially when you've got a time scale like we have. They need to get fitted to the chassis, get boxed up and head out to Germany. So this is the similar sort of grip actually to what's going to be on the factory versions. This is one of my old ones actually from a Steyr fitment. I've got to fit this to that going forward because the grooved grip is not compliant for the benchrest rules that I'm under. They will consider that an anatomical grip. It's not, but I'm going to end up putting a grip on. So this was just going to get flat back, matte blacked, truck bed liner, job done, same as usual. So that's going to go onto there. Now, this is very similar to the actual grips that are going to be fitted from factory. Similar proportions. It's got a load of palm swell there. It also have a little palm shelf that's removable. Nice little grip, actually works really well, and it's not so restrictive that if you're in these really weird forced positionals, maybe shooting off sticks and things like that, sometimes these really restrictive grips like this can actually be a bit of a burden. They can put too much tension in your wrist, not really ideal. So quite a lot of stuff to look forward to in the future. Hopefully these will be out early next year. I don't know for sure. I don't know the costs. I know nothing like that.
I imagine that this is going to be pretty much the spec of the final one, but of course things are subject to change. Don't hold me to any of this. Weights and things, I'm going to put some pictures up in a moment, some interesting weights when I stripped this all down when I first got it. Stuck it all on the kitchen scales when Sam was out, so there's some interesting little specs there with the various different weights. I guess the last question everyone always asks me, what's it like working with these factories? It's an absolute nightmare, honestly. Being self-employed and doing what I do, I always get my own way. I always have done for my adult life. It's really hard when you have to work with other people. Of course, there's design briefs. Everyone's got all their own information, but I've had to learn to rein it in a little bit. I don't always get what I want. However, looking at this now, I wouldn't change a thing. And yeah, I'm surprised that they put up with me more than anything. So that'll do it for this one, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. We'll have some cool content on this, hopefully. I'll see you later.